Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed the same? The motion carries. Mr. Foster, will you present the budget, please?
Budget was printed, published in both the Green Reporter and the Butler County Star Tribune for the last couple of weeks. The published budget is up on the screen. I think a couple of things we need to keep in mind is that the budget is based off our certified enrollment, which includes our special education numbers, supplementary weighting, operational sharing money, and we get half funding for preschool students. The numbers that are shown in this spreadsheet, there's most likely no way that these are going to be the final numbers because the legislature has not set our allowable growth rate, supplemental state aid rate yet for this year. They were required by law to do it 18 months in advance, which would have been last February, and it hasn't been set yet, and we're nearing 500 days since that was supposed to be done. When we publish, we're required to publish early, so we have to publish at the highest tax rate, or what will give us the highest tax rate, because we can't raise the rate after publication, but we can always go down. So we've published at a 4% allowable growth or supplemental state aid growth rate. There's no way that that's going to happen. The Republicans aren't going to allow that to happen. North Butler does not qualify for a budget guarantee because we've had increased enrollment over the last couple of years. Some of our neighbors qualify for the budget guarantee, which means that when you qualify for the budget guarantee, that falls back on property taxes. So those districts, if they carry a 0% rate when they publish, their tax rate will be higher than it would at 4% because the budget guarantee all goes back to property tax. If you look at the bottom of this, it says that total resources is $11,900,822. This covers all of our funds, not just the general fund. We're estimating our total general fund operating and spending authority of over just over 7.1 million for fiscal year 16. Like I said, the published budget includes all of our funds, including our infrastructure funds. Tax rate, we have a little bit of a different thing that goes on here at North Butler because of the reorganization a few years back. We have what is called a combined tax rate, and our combined tax rate, when we published at 4%, is $12.72 per $1,000 of valuation. At 0%, that would be $12.54 per thousand. At 1.25%, it would be $12.60, and at 2%, it would be $12.63. The historical green districts at 4% for this year, this next year, would be $12.98. Last year was $13.55. The historical Allison Briscoe district for this coming year would be $12.39. Last year was $12.94. Basically, that means the property taxes for all of our patrons will go down a minimum of 57 cents per $1,000 of evaluation in the historical green district, and 54 cents per $1,000 of evaluation in the historical Allison Briscoe district.
Anybody have any questions? Members of the audience, any questions on the budget? This is your meeting at this point, so if you've got questions on this budget, this is the time to ask them.
I would like to ask our board and the members of our community to please contact your legislators and encourage them to get supplemental state aid set. It's really difficult to go forward with anything when we don't know what we're going to have to work with. I've contacted and I've contacted and I've contacted, and the Democrats keep responding, and I don't get much of a response at all from the Republicans. I did have a nice conversation with Senator Dix here about a week and a half ago. We just decided that we were going to have to differ on our opinions on school funding. But the more they hear, the more they know that people care about what's going on with it. They're hearing a lot from patrons in other districts. Several districts have had students make videos and send them down to the legislature, and they've actually been played on the floor in the House and the Senate. I know many of you have heard that the superintendent in Davenport has said that he will violate state law next year because of the lack of change in funding. They have a little bit different situation. They have a large cash balance that they can afford to do that with. But it's just, I think it's imperative that we keep in mind what our legislators are doing to our schools when it comes election time in 580 days.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you did the budget based off that 4% increase, and like the legislation is talking right now where they tried to meet at 2%, so then what happens if it does pass and then you figured for 4 and you're only getting the 2?
Well, we're planning on 0 at this time. This is what we have to publish. The spreadsheet, actually, all we have to do is go in and plug some different numbers in, and it'll give us our final values once that happens.
Is there from like the SBRC, the review, I was trying to pull it up and I couldn't, they post on their decision that they allowed that
Yes,
200,000 or whatever the other day.
yes.
But are we supposed to be keeping the expenses then for the general fund at a certain amount, like at 6 million, or was that something else? I was gonna try to read it, but I couldn't pull it up fast enough.
They're basically saying that we shouldn't spend any more than we take in, and that we shouldn't spend our miscellaneous income before we get it. So I think they said it's like just over $6 million, and then plus whatever miscellaneous income that we've taken in at that time.
So that includes the 7 million then you're
Yes.
talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
And that'll be what we carry over our unspent balance from this year, and then whatever our increase is, plus what we're projecting for our miscellaneous income for next year.
So if we're talking about the unspent balance that you've been talking about for this year, I think it was mentioned you found more money or found that something on the radio last week, or it was published. Where did that money come from to put us up higher?
We went through and reworked the budget and found that our expenditures aren't going to be as high as what Terry had left.
Okay.
He had projected at just over 7 million, and what we've worked through, we think that we're gonna be about 6,740,000 or something like that.
So what was your general fund budget for 2015 now?
It's right around $7 million, I think. I don't have that spreadsheet up. Well, hold
What
on.
was that? I can't hear you.
Hold on a second. That's about 7.1 million.
Okay, didn't the SBRC say that you wasn't supposed to go over 6 million, 18,000 something?
That's the money that we get from the state, yes. But then they've also given us the authority now for that, the extra 213,000, so that adds to that. That'll add to our unspent balance. It adds to our spending authority.
7 million,
So what are you projecting right now at the end of this fiscal year?
With
the new information?
With the new information from the SBRC, and that all depends on expenditures between here and the end of June, if we have some major breakdowns with buses and things, probably around $300,000.
Can you tell us where them savings were coming from then?
It's just a difference in expenditures, Paul. Just, he had overestimated the cost of some things maybe, or we haven't done some of the things that were originally in the budget.
You were saying bus expenses now. What is your bus lease? You have a 3-year bus lease now.
Yeah, but we still have some buses that aren't on lease that we'll have to repair.
Are you using them every day then?
No, we're not, and right now, there's a bill in the legislature that will hopefully let us take those costs of repair starting July 1st out of our physical plant and equipment levy or our 1-cent sales tax. So any major bus repairs, we're gonna hold out as long as we can to see if they'll do that, or to wait till after July 1st so we don't have to take the hit in the general fund this year.
So what is your bus lease a year then?
Our bus lease is about $85,000, but that comes out of the 1-cent sales tax and the Butler.
And that is for 3 years, you're gonna pay that for 3 years.
Yes.
Now what happens at the end of 3 years? on your
Then,
lease?
then we can either purchase them, or we can turn them in and lease new buses.
Do you have a mileage on your buses?
Yeah, 15,000 miles a year,
How many?
15,000,
And then what is the mileage over that?
that's 25 cents, but we shouldn't go over that.
25 cents a mile for
Yep.
15,000?
Yep. Don researched our mileage quite well before we entered into the lease, and we should be okay. And if we need to shuffle buses around because one's getting more miles than the other, we'll do that.
On the obligation bonds that we owe, what is the total amount? And is that under the debt service?
That would be under debt service, and that just comes out of property tax on a yearly basis.
And-
That's built into the levies.
And that you said was going down?
Yeah, it would go down every year.
We transfer
Um,
money from silo.
But we do transfer $200,000 a year from our 1 cent sales tax to the debt service to buy down the tax rate in green a little bit, to help even those out. And that was something that was set in place with the reorganization.
So before your buses were being paid out of the general fund when you owned the buses? Correct?
Just the repairs, yes.
Right, and that was about 80-some thousand a year?
The best that I can find, it was somewhere between $70,000 and $90,000 last year.
Okay, so now you lease the buses and you didn't lease them, you leased them through the loss fund, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So that will automatically put your general fund at 85,000 or whatever you're saying positive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of your gains on your.
Yes,
on
it
your
is,
general
and
fund
that's why we
budget.
did that.
So what costs for the transportation and what, even if that changes July first, what will still come out of the, general fund? Like the fuel? And that's
Fuel
it?
and maintenance.
So maintenance and repairs are different?
It depends on what the legislation says when it
Yeah.
comes through. A lot of times they'll set a cost limit on those things. Like if we buy technology out of those funds, there's a $500 minimum. So we can't repair computers and things when it's like a $200 repair out of those funds. So we'll have to wait and see what the legislation says if it goes through.
But the mileage and everything that was figured in, was that figured into what the new routes are gonna be for this upcoming school year with all the changes, or is that just from what?
The routes aren't gonna be much longer than they are now. The routes are actually getting close to being completed, and I don't think they're gonna be any longer than what we're running right now.
But you're gonna have extra buses going back.
We already
and
have
forth.
buses going back and forth, so it's not gonna be any more than they're going now, I don't believe.
So what do we have going now? One over and one each way?
We have two going each way with students each day, and then we have a couple of activity routes going too.
So do you have any numbers there showing that the savings it is by closing Green Elementary School?
That was all in the corrective action plan that we sent in. That's not on this.
Do you have a number for us?
I'd have to go back and dig it all out, but
Well, I'd like to see it.
stop by and see me sometime, Paul, and we'll go through that.
Can you show the unspent balance we'll have after next year projected?
Projecting about 700,000. And that, like always, depends on settlements and expenses. You know, inflation is 3%, and they wanna give us 1.25, which may get set back to 0 anyway, so it's hard to say what exactly it'll be. But projections are just over 700,000.
For the end of when?
What's that?
For what time period?
For the end of fiscal 16.
Thanks.
Do you have the numbers that you can show us in writing how you're coming up with them numbers? That's 700,000,
Yeah.
okay.
So were we not in such a financial grim picture as what we presented at the first of the year?
And that you-
Not what the decisions the board made. I have to change this, yeah. This, This doesn't have all the information in it yet, I haven't put it all over this one yet since we went to the SBRC last week, so.
Not all the information is in there from the SBRC. It hasn't been updated completely.
Otherwise, this would show you where the unspent balance is at, but it's not all in here.
Do you feel like we could be in a position to take a step back and do a little bit more planning just to make sure that we could utilize the space that we have and remodel a little bit better before the next school year?
I don't think it would be wise to take any steps backwards after the work that we've done to get to where we need to be.
And you,
What's the position on class size in grades K through 3?
That's not a budget issue at this point, this is a budget hearing.
you said if you got less state funding, then you put the numbers in and it reworks everything. How does that affect your expenditures then? Because, you know, if you get less funding, do you just cut your expenditures at that time to what you're proposing?
We've already made the adjustments that we need to make if they come at 0%.
How much is gonna be cut in employees for 2016 and wages?
I don't remember exactly what it is, Paul. We had the numbers. I know we've saved in the 3 retirements that we've gotten. It's going to be as $240,000, $230,000 right in there somewhere, and that's just the 3 retirements.
How many early retirement people did you have?
We had 4, 3 took it.
Excuse me?
We had 4 that were eligible and 3 took it.
Okay. And you haven't made any other cuts beyond that yet?
We will.
You haven't made it public?
No.
So how do you come up with $240,000 in savings when they would have to be making more than $240,000 a year to come up with that much in savings?
Salary and benefits.
Is the benefits still being paid out of the general fund or not?
After they retire, their retirement benefits come out of management fund.
Are any rehirings being done for those?
Not for those positions.
Any other questions?
So you're not replacing any retired teachers?
No.
No staff? You said you was closing the elementary school to better education. When you cut teachers, and it seems to me like you're not doing education any good.
That's really not a budget question, I guess, Paul.
I think it is, because it's dollars. We're talking dollars on savings on teachers. That's what the budget is to deal with, is salaries. Now we cut teachers' salary by $240,000. We still have the same amount of pupils, or maybe more, so we're going to have more students per teacher with poor education.
We'll be able to shuffle them better amongst the teachers to manage class sizes.
Is that good for education?
It's not going to hurt it. The teachers won't be overloaded with students.
How about 3-year-olds? I mean, since we do have such a surplus, is there any option for having a 3-year-old program in Allison? Is there any consideration of talk from the school board about that?
No.
Any other questions?
Well, even with this $700,000, you aren't gonna reconsider not closing the school and delaying this?
No.
Because the whole reason was to, get us in a positive balance.
That's the only thing that gets us there.
How can you say that when you don't have the numbers to show
Right.
us?
We've gone through the numbers before.
You know, you haven't brought them, not showed them to us, the savings.
We went through those numbers last fall when we had our public meetings.
You print them off and get them to me.
Come see me, Paul, and we'll go through them.
Well, if this is a public hearing, then why aren't they numbers here?
Well, because that's not part of our budget for next year. We're going through the published budget right now.
But the budget for next year from last year matters because it all comes from the same place. You're working off the numbers you had last year, and that's why you're closing the school, is because of the numbers you had. So you justified closing the school so you could have more money in the budget for next year. So last year's does matter, the year before matters, now matters, it all matters. We were told at the public meeting last year you didn't have the numbers, and you still don't have them here to present. And it's always come to my office, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And nobody ever sees it. And if there's people that are gonna lose their jobs, then maybe you should start telling them so they can find another job, because it's the middle of April.
You address that. The only ones that are losing their jobs are the ones that took voluntary early retirement.
So those are the only three things that was cut.
There'll be some hourly people too.
Right, but have you told them that?
Not yet.
Don't they deserve that respect,
And when
especially
we
if they
have those
put in a lot of
decisions, maybe
time?
we'll talk to them.
You have a number in your mind what that figure is.
I put a figure out there last fall.
No, a figure for retired, for, people that you was gonna terminate,
Yeah,
you did.
yes, we talked about a secretary, a janitor, and kitchen staff. When we,
Okay, so
when
if
we
we
closed
talked
the
about
building.
it, you probably remember the number right now, but
I don't remember exactly.
It's Monday, it's practice.
We've had issues with the fire alarm over the
No,
last week.
the fire, they did practice on Monday to make sure it works, the tornado siren.
What about the nutrition fund? Does that come out of the general fund?
And the nutrition fund is a separate entity to itself.
Is there a plan to pay the $44,000 back? Are you expecting a surplus in the nutrition fund to be able to pay the general fund back? Doing better?
I don't know that the whole 44,000 will be able to be paid back this year, but some will be able to.
Do we know why it was negative?
Probably food costs and, I don't know.
Do we get reimbursed anything from the government?
What's that?
Do we get reimbursed at all from the government?
Well, we buy commodity food, we get it at a cheaper rate. And then people that are on free suspensions, we get reimbursed for their extra costs.
So just overspending in that account?
Probably not charging enough for lunches.
But that did go up this year?
They went up this year and they'll probably go up again for next year. Sure.
Part of the reason that the nutrition fund was in the red last year was our a la carte prices. We were selling a la carte things like seconds and things for under what we were having to pay for them. And those were addressed last year by the school board.
Was it in the negative like the last 3 years?
Part of that was an auditor write-down, and I don't know, I mean, that's not really, I mean, it is my department, but the numbers aren't, but part of it was an auditor write-down, and I can't answer that because, I mean, that's a business manager's job. So, again, we're really looking good this year and hope to get most of that paid back to the general fund.
Is
But
there?
a lot of it came in the a la
Sorry.
carte sales.
Is there who's in control? Is the head cook in charge of all the accounting for the nutrition fund, or Shelley, do you work with that person? Do you see all the bills and invoices and everything for food? And it's kind of a team effort, or
It
they're,
comes back through the district office, through the business office.
so you approve, pay all the bills and such? Okay,
And there's very specific places that they can buy things from, which we'll approve later on in the next meeting,
thank you.
part of a co-op.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Have there been any other increased internal controls over the budget items? Are you, from past, as far as the school board goes, or I know it's tricky to do, but are there any new policies in place for this upcoming, budget for more internal controls, or?
Just asking for, our reports at the end of the month or every month like we've been getting, and they've been doing a lot better job of getting those to us.
And I think the biggest thing is making sure that things are coded appropriately when they go through. One of the biggest questions that the SPRC asked was why we weren't billing for Medicaid anymore. Well, we got to figure out exactly why we were sending $150,000 and another $100,000 back every year. Well, when we're billing for Medicaid, and you have this special ed pot sitting around, you got to spend the Medicaid money first. Then you have to. It doesn't make sense for us to bill when we're not able to spend what we have in the first place. So those things, and making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be with the money and it's going to the right place, that's a big thing. Making sure that our expenditures are coming from the right account. Everything that we can, we move over to the PEPAL and the 1-cent sales tax. And our biggest job is to protect the general fund as much as we can.
So do you feel in the last 5 years that things have not come out of the correct fund? Is that what you're stating there? Or?
There were some things that weren't coded properly. There was a lot of special ed things that we don't think were coded properly in the last few years. But there's nothing we can do about that.
So how much money though was sent back, like say over last, I mean, you haven't been here that long, but 2 years or every year, was there something sent back?
Just 2 years, and it was about it was $150,000 I think one year and $100,000 the next.
So this year, what did we get for that? What was the amount that for the special ed or whatever?
Yeah, we got about $1 million, just over $1 million in special ed money, and we're doing our best to make sure that we don't have to send any back. We can carry over, I think it's $50,000. 10%, so it'll be $100,000. So we're gonna make sure that we spend down below that amount. So we don't
How
have to
much
send
have you
it back.
spent so far? Do you have any idea?
We're doing pretty well.
We're gonna be close.
We're gonna
We won't have to send any back, I didn't know that.
Can I just say something though about sending it back? As a special ed teacher, I did go to administration. There are things that we needed and could have used, but I was told in May, both years, there was no money. So I hate to hear it was sent back and we didn't spend it, because I can spend money, ask my husband, I can spend it.
And she's
So-
doing a really good job.
Very good job. So I don't want people to think we could not have used that money. We went without, I've been here for 5 years and some of my kids went without the
But
needed things.
The other side of that too is that we have to be able to justify it for the needs of our
Correct.
students too. We can't just spend it willy-nilly.
Yeah, but we had some equipment and stuff I wish we could have used when the kids first came here, and they're getting it now. But, so that's one thing, we were just always told there was no money. So,
And the board asked if there were expenditures that could have been paid so that we weren't sending that back. So,
And we actually, Shelley went back in early July, went back and coded some stuff last year back to special ed, otherwise we'd have had to send more back.
Does the board see all the receipts before they're approved to be paid or ordered? Like if you have, do they always approve all the bills?
Yeah, all of the bills that are approved tonight are sitting, the checks are sitting on my desk, they don't go out until they're approved. Other than there's very specific things like utilities, that I can pay them without board approval, and postage, I think. And things that have been approved ahead of time, like these payments.
Can I ask a question? You say you're carrying over 10% of that special ed money, about 100K. Can you use that money to, on the building for, and you can't use it at all, to
I've
widen any
I've already asked that
doorways?
question, so.
Okay.
Attached to the special ed, right?
Any further questions? If not, I need a motion from the board to approve the budget. Second?
We gotta do a little time on this. At the 12 point whatever percent, or 12 point,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
presented there.
Eric,
Yes.
Kristen? Yes. Scott?
Yes.
Gail? Yes. Laura? John?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Eric? Or yes, you're on, sorry.
Order it in, vote off, shall we? Okay, need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
One second.
Okay, now we'll move into our regular board meeting. We need to call that to order. Are there any additions to the agenda or changes?
Yeah, we need to add number 7, accept initial proposal from the NBEA. And then number 12, just add the word approve on discuss and approve summer projects, which actually we pushed down to 12.
What was that one?
Approve, add the word approve and discuss summer projects. I think it's 11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. All opposed the same. The motion carries. Review and approve the minutes from the 2012, or the February 12th, 2015 meeting.
Mark.
Oh, March, okay.
Did I not change that?
No, it's, yeah, February, that'd be March.
March 9th.
Okay. I'll vote twice on that. Second?
One second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed the same? So motion carries. Financial reports.
So we look at our cash balances. General fund has cash balance of about 445,000. Management has a cash balance of about 160,000. Pepple is just over $500,000. 1 cent sales tax, 1.179 million. Debt service has a balance of 36,000. Nutrition has a balance of 83,294. Activity is a balance of 343,241. The scholarships, trust and agency is 6151, and the CDs is about 113, almost 114,000. One thing that we need to make the board aware of was we're probably going to have to amend the budget for this year with some of the construction projects that we got going on. And then we're also going to have to amend the nutrition fund next month, probably just the expenditures are more than what was there to start the year. So we'll have to amend the agenda to move those things. So we will publish that here in the next couple of weeks, and we will do that at the May board meeting. general fund, cash flow, that's what we spend the budget. This percent of what we spend toward the budget. Yes. Shows we spent about 67% of the budget was supposed to for last year, for this year. Oh, sorry, that's received, we've received about 67% of what we're expecting, we've spent about 71%.
Any questions on the financial reports? Now we need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. So motion carries. Any public items of discussion?
One thing back to this monthly bills, there's a couple of things in there that, had contracts signed on them before Shelley and I got here that we won't be carrying on next year most likely. Aramark is a monthly charge for coming in and cleaning rooms and stuff, and I think we can buy our own and clean them ourselves at a much cheaper rate. And, we still have two pest control companies, one here in Green and one in Allison. The one in Allison is charging us through those. We're working on getting our copiers all on one lease, and we're gonna work on finishing straightening some of that stuff up there over the next few months, and next year some of it probably we'll work on getting it all straightened out.
Any board items of discussion? Okay, so move on to the initial proposal from the NDEA.
We will set a time to meet with our team, and we'll get back to you with the date to exchange the next proposal.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Item 8, or item 9, if they approve the 403
No,
B.
no, the IAP contract.
Oh, okay. Okay. You need to approve the IAEP contract for 2015-16.
The IAEP is our purchasing contract for food. We're part of a consortium. They go out and they take the bids, so we don't have to go through that process, and we just need to approve participating in that program again for this 15-16. I would recommend you do that.
Need a motion to approve? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? The motion carries. Item 9, approve the 403B plan update.
This is nothing more than just changing the name. We're still split into two 403B plans, one for Allison Bristol, one for Green, and we just need to approve changing the name to North Butler and putting them together.
Any questions? We need a motion to approve the 403B plan update.
Second?
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same? The motion carries. Item 10, approve licensure support agreement for teachers.
Without any getting into specifics about an individual's contract, this is just, it's an agreement that we put together with the district lawyer and the ISEA to support a teacher through getting her full licensure. She's been working on a administrative decision for the last year, and she needs to work through, finish getting a Class B license and then a full licensure. This has some built-in protections for the district that if the teacher, that will support her through that, as long as she's making process, it does give us the right to recourse if she doesn't follow through with that. So we just need to approve this.
Make a motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second. John, second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, the same. The motion carries. Item 11, discuss and approve the green ball fields for softball league.
I got an email from a patron who would like to use one of the ball fields here in Green for a softball league that would start after fair time. They said that they would work around anything that would involve little Bearcats. They just would like permission to use the ball fields. I think that it would be okay for them to use the ball fields as long as they remember it's still on school grounds and follow the appropriate protocol.
So it's an adult league?
Yes, it would be an adult league.
Liability concerns there.
I'd have to check with Lucas.
Should be fine.
You need a motion to approve the green ball fields for summer league. Second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Discuss and approve the summer projects.
Still working on getting some stuff back on some of the summer projects. I should get the contract back for the track here in the next few days. He's been waiting on his bond, on his performance bond before he sends the contract back, and then we'll talk about the specifics on start date for that. Today late, I did get a quote from Lunch Construction to do the drainage for inside the track to get rid of the water, and that's part of the problem that we've had down there in the past, with the water not draining off the track, not being usable. That quote is for $43,503.60. This is something that I think we'd have had to do regardless of whether we did a track project or not, so I think it's a cost the board should cover. There would be a 1 cent sales tax expenditure, and I talked to Kurt. He said that they would be able to get it done before Heartland got here to do the track. I don't know where to get another quote from. I don't think it's their usual line of work, but he said that they would do it for us. They're more into the heavy duty city sewer stuff, so I think we should go ahead with that. And I've gotten a quote on parking lot at Allison from Schroeder Concrete. I'm waiting for the bid to come back from Heartland Asphalt on that. And we talked about some other things, and we've had to get a general contractor involved with a couple of the projects because the companies that we wanted to do it with didn't want to do that without getting somebody else involved. So we'll work through that. The company that we've been working with on cameras and entry systems and that is all one company at this point, and they're not getting back to me yet, so we're going to have to start contacting somebody else for that. At this time, I would recommend that we go ahead with the drainage project, football field, with Lunch Construction.
Any questions? You need a motion to approve the drainage project with Lunch Construction for $43,000.
Motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Laura. All in favor say aye. Opposed, the same. So motion carries. We need to approve the selling of surplus items.
It was brought to my attention the other day that the City of Green is having citywide yard sale the first weekend in May. One of our employees who has been dealing with our overflow stuff at the bus barn asked if it would be okay if he put stuff that's over there in the bus barn out for sale that day. And I think that would be a good idea to get rid of it. I have told the teachers that they need to go through it first and look to see if there's anything that they could use in their classrooms, or at least we're supposed to get back to them prior to that. So if there's things they can use next year, if there's storage food or things like that, they can go through it first. But other than that, I would like the board to approve us selling those surplus items, and one thought is that we can either put a price on things or just ask for a free will donation. Sometimes it does better with free will donation than put a price on it.
And then whatever is left over, you're just gonna haul it down,
Yes.
just get rid of it.
Yep.
So, free will donation or price on things, either way?
Without a silent bid.
It's mostly just like old desks and chairs and stuff, so it's not like it's expensive stuff. If there were some things that might have some value as antiques and stuff, we might put that out for closed bid and stuff, or maybe even on eBay. Whereas prior, we actually had some gloves that brought over $400 on eBay. So.
I'm okay with free will. I mean, that'll save whoever's putting it out there time too, and not having to label everything. I don't know how much stuff is there, but that can kind of consume.
And I think we'll have better odds of getting rid of more stuff if we do that. Unless we've got a hallway to deal with later. We need a motion to approve the selling of surplus, or the free will donation of surplus items.
And we will have more later in the summer when we start cleaning up the buildings in Allison too.
Get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed the same? So motion carries. Personnel recommendations.
We only have 2 items under personnel tonight. First is Don Hoyer's resignation. Don is going to retire effective at the end of June. His last day of work with his vacation will be June 12th. And I would recommend that we accept that resignation.
Make a motion to accept.
Second? Yep, done, thank you. All in favor say aye. Opposed the same? So motion carries.
And our other would be to hire Todd Thompson as assistant football coach. Todd's the only one who's expressed interest in open assistant football coach position we have.
We get a motion for approval for Todd Thompson.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed the same? So motion carries. And the administrator's report.
For the elementary?
Mr. Foster, go ahead, pull that up.
I'm looking at it.
Sure, it's called, Board Report, April 2016. You go to your Google Drive.
I can start reading it, it's nothing profound with numbers or anything. A lot of these are things that I told you were upcoming at the last meeting, and now they've taken place. So, on March 11th, the K-4 students and staff had a successful transition day. The Green Elementary students traveled over to Allison, and we watched the Old Creamery Theater production of CharacterRocks.com, which was outstanding as usual. And then the kids did multiple activities with their grade level peers. Lots of thanks are in order. The teachers did a nice job planning. Associates hauled a lot of equipment from Green over to Allison to make it successful for our special needs students, as well as being very flexible that day. Cafeteria had an awesome sack lunch. Bus drivers, custodians, everybody chipped in, and the weather was gorgeous, which was an added bonus too in the middle of March. So it was really a good day. The kids appeared to really have a great time, and if there were kids that didn't enjoy themselves, I sure didn't hear anything, but I heard a lot from a lot of parents who said their kids had a great time, so they were very excited. Green Elementary this past month has been doing a reading unit. Students turned in reading slips each week, kept track of their minutes, and had weekly rewards. This past week, one group went right before Easter break and one went right after Easter break to the W and went swimming. The group that went right after Easter break had lightning, and who knew that Wartburg didn't let you swim if it was lightning in an indoor pool, but they got to do the rock climbing wall and some other things, and then the lightning cleared up and they got to swim the last 45 minutes, so they kind of had a win-win despite the weather. So parent-teacher conferences were a success. Thank you to all the families that attended. We are working on planning an open house just for families to come visit the Allison site. We understand there's some green families that maybe haven't toured around the building much or seen it, as well as having things labeled to where we think things are going to be kind of laid out. Hoping to have some tours as well. There's some debate about whether we want to do that in the spring or in the fall, but I think that the sooner we get families in there, as long as they're understanding that they're not decorated yet by the new teacher. You know, some rooms are still going to look like a middle school room, even though next year it might be a 4th grade room or it might be a 5th grade room. So, but if that eases people's minds of kind of seeing how the layout of the building is, that's certainly something we want to do to help families prepare for that transition. With that same token, teachers from both buildings are working together during our PD to prepare for the 15-16 school year, which is right around the corner. They're looking at class lists, orders, schedules, all those things for next year. Students in both elementary buildings as well as the middle school have wrapped up the order-taking step of the Chip Shop fundraiser, and thank you to Jennifer Miller, who always helps organize that, helps with some of the money counting and things. So they're all counted, but they're being mailed in tomorrow. And lots of field trips are happening in the elementary, well, and actually in the district, and we're just really grateful for all the wonderful opportunities that our kids have nearby here to attend.
And I'd like to say with that, a special thank you to our PTOs for helping support those and allowing our kids to do that. A lot of those things we wouldn't be able to do without their assistance.
A lot of great things. That's elementary.
Thank you, Ms. Whiting.
You're welcome.
Middle school and high school, kind of I have the same thing on each one. On March 26th, we had a orientation, transition, one-to-one informational meeting, kind of wrapped into one. We had a group. We had one session for next year's 7th and 8th grade students and parents, and then another session for next year's 9th grade students and parents. We were 95% or better of students and parents who attended that. It was a great turnout. Our transition team is comprised of teachers who will be teaching here next year from both buildings. Worked real hard on coming up with the plan for the evening and how things were going to go. Mrs. Clark kind of spearheaded that group. Mr. Thompson and quite a few other teachers were all involved as well. We were also very fortunate to have next year's seniors, which would be class of 2016, serve as ambassadors, and they took students and parents on a tour and really did a great job of taking to all parts of the building, describing what was going on here, how this will work, etc. Got a lot of really good feedback from folks on that. Just a great way for the parents and the students who will be here next year to kind of get a little more comfortable with the surroundings and whatnot. Middle school held their annual solo ensemble festival Saturday, March 28th. This is a real good way for the students to start gaining some experience in practicing and performing, and then getting some feedback from a judge. That's put on locally by our middle school music team there. Also, a really cool thing happened on April 9th, that was last Thursday. Mrs. Trulson and Mrs. Anschutz had worked on and put in for a McElroy grant, and were successful, and they were able to bring an outfit known as the Marengo, Iowa Civil War Band to the middle school. The cool thing about April 9th, it was the 150th anniversary of the signing of the surrender from Lee to Grant at Appomattox. And these folks this band has been around for about 21 years. Some of them are retired, now retired music band teachers and some other folks. And they play songs from the Civil War era, in the band as how they would have sounded at that time, and then tell little stories about the importance of the band and the different songs. They put on little clinics for our band and choir students, and then did a performance for all the 5th through 8th grade students. And these kind of things are really critical to get the kids interested in history. Sometimes the things don't really go into detail. This was a really, really fascinating piece, and great that our teachers were able to help bring this alive for our students. Another thing that happens every year at the building in Allison is they always open up the school and the facility for the Butler County RAC's annual meeting. This is just one of many excellent examples of partnering with our local community organizations and people in the towns, and it's a well-attended event, and I think it's great that we're able to work with those organizations year in and year out. High school, we talked about the same thing, the transition night. The rest of these things are happening within the last couple of weeks, even within the last month. Just a lot of great things are going on here. A lot of kids are doing stuff and working above and beyond what they typically do in the classroom. Senior Jacob Goodrich, he was among the group of our students who went to state, and he was, I think, the first one in quite a while, and maybe a long time, who actually was invited and won a trip to the All-State Individual Speech Festival at UNI. Those folks are having their awards banquet tonight. Freshman Abby Wicks, I think, has been the first one to submit a paper to the Norman Borlaug Scholar. She was actually named a Borlaug Scholar. She wrote a paper pertaining to raising cattle in Africa. She will be traveling to ISU for a recognition and award ceremony. We have 33 students who, for the first time ever for North Butler, will be traveling to UNI this Thursday and Friday to participate in the Iowa High School Model United Nations. We've had 4 of our students receive recognitions for position papers they authored. They are Addison Clark, Clay Schultz, Jacob Goodrich, and Blake Mulder. Mr. Goodrich will be taking these students to UNI to participate in the Model UN. Physics team competed in the Physics Olympics at UNI, and the North Butler team was 5th out of about 15 teams. We had Isabel Drzinski and Joanna Schaefer got 3rd out of 22 teams in the straw arm competition. This Saturday, our band and choir students will participate in the state solo ensemble contest. Prom will be held April 25th. The Grand March will be in the old gym at 7 p.m. Again, that's some information about the speech students who went to the state tournament. Spring Swing Show was really awesome. The jazz band did some Blues Brothers type songs. And one thing that was kind of neat is the jazz band was joined by the choir, and then they got participation from the audience in the performance of Minnie the Moocher. Our spring pre-contest concert will be Friday, May 8th, and second year in a row, Drew Johnson has been named All-State Band. That's quite an accomplishment. Mrs. Endelman and Mr. Miller took 12 NBHS student athletes to a leadership conference in March. Have been meeting with the students and Mr. Thompson to form an NBHS Athletic Leadership Council. We're very excited about the possibilities of that council. A lot of great things are going on. A lot of kids are doing a lot of things outside of and getting learning opportunities outside of the classroom that are very valuable for the students.
Thank you, Mr. Huff. Mr. Foster.
Like I said a little bit ago, I'm still working on getting the quotes and stuff on the items to discuss in some of the projects. Wicks Water is working on an install date for the water softener here at the high school. They were going to talk to Rick and set a date. They finally got all their stuff in. Some of the parts were held up and shipped. It's out on the west coast. Don has contacted Johnson Tiling about several projects that we have, and told them to call me, and they haven't called me yet as of today. Don's resignation we talked about. We did get an ad out Friday. I sent it to the newspapers, and it's out on Teach Iowa today for transportation director for Don's position. We have placed an ad for a special education teacher in middle school. We're looking at a request, leadership team will talk about it, we talked about it as administrators today, about a request from fifth and sixth grade for a device for their students. We discussed the possibility of Chromebooks. They're a cheaper alternative and maybe a good avenue in the future for a lower cost resource as we move forward from MacBooks. The last of our new buses finally arrived last Friday. I have been asked about the possibility of sharing our librarian with Clarksville. It wouldn't be a large amount of time, I don't believe, from what I was told, and this actually is not accurate. It wouldn't be eligible for sharing money, but it is eligible for supplementary weighting by sharing a teacher with the district. Librarian was taken out of the operational sharing. The SBRC meeting went well last Wednesday. I think they asked a grand total of about 4 questions.
2 of them we couldn't answer, so they figured it out themselves.
Yep. There's more of a round table about that. And it was really interesting listening to the conversation before the meeting, the frustration that they have down there. They're dealing with 300 plus school districts that are dealing with the frustration of not having supplemental state aid set. And throughout the course of that meeting, there were a lot of sideways comments directed at the legislature and the governor. So it was kind of interesting and a little humorous at the same time. We're not the only ones that are feeling that frustration. School funding facts from IASB. This was sent out the other day, and I found this really interesting. The Republicans are saying that since fiscal 2011, they pumped $554 million into schools, and this breaks it down. And they can't say that these numbers aren't accurate because it comes from the Legislative Services Agency, which is a nonpartisan group, and the Department of Management. Basically, only 38% of that money has gone toward school aid growth. 18% has gone to the teacher leadership compensation grants, which, yes, it does come into the general fund, but it is categorical money and was not supposed to, it was only meant to supplement what we're doing, not supplant our funding. 6% is property tax relief, 9% is backfill of American Reinvestment Recovery Act funds, and 28% is backfill of state aid reduction. So it's back in, where they've taken property tax out, it's putting more money back in there from the state coffers. So the reality is they haven't put $554 million into education. A lot of it is just talk coming out of the other side of their mouth. We did get a notice today from the state auditor that they received a petition for re-audit of the district for fiscal 2014. My understanding is that they will contact the Ultragi's office and ask them for some documentation, and then they will make a decision from there whether they think that they need to do that or not. There would be no cost to the district for that. And then Lucas sent me some information the other day on a group safety seminar that's put on by IASB and Jester Insurance and EMC. That's in May 19th in Cedar Falls. Talks about some cyber liability, school risk management, and safety group program, fact versus fiction. There's an agenda of the day there. Most of the people talking are insurance people. If you'd like to go to that, let me know and I'll get us signed up. Lucas, was there a deadline on that?
No, we need to get it in soon though.
Okay. So, if anybody's interested in that, let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Need a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Thank you all for coming.